Hi, welcome to this brand new channel. My name is Caroline, and today we are going to talk about trauma. We're going to talk about, what trauma is, although I'm sure if you clicked on this video, you're really probably very, very, very aware of what trauma is because you have experienced it. We're going to talk about big T traumas and little t traumas and kind of the difference. We're going to talk about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, versus CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. We're going to talk about the differences between the two, give some examples, and I'm going to introduce myself just a little bit so you know why I'm making this channel in the first place. I'm going to be making 2 videos a week. One video is going to be talking about general mental health things, especially related to complex PTSD. We'll talk about some of the symptoms. We'll talk about how they're manifesting in our lives and things that can help us with that. And the second video during the week that I'm going to be making, I will be working through this book. This book is called the Dialectical Behavior Therapy Skills Workbook for CPTSD. It's a big, long title. Dialectical Behavior Therapy is DBT, if you've heard those initials before. DBT is really, really good at helping develop the skills for calming the nervous system. And I have found in all of the work that I have done with mental health, when I have seen counselors, when I've done work on my own, the key part that was missing, it seemed like nobody really talked to me about how to calm my nervous system down. And you know what? When you're doing trauma work, you really should calm your nervous system down. You should be able to bring yourself to a state of peace and calm and grounded and centered so that the work can be done. So as I go through this book and as I work through the workbook, it is a workbook style, and I'm going to do that with you. I'm going to take chapter at a time, maybe half a chapter at a time, and talk about the progress that I'm making, the things that I'm learning, and do that along with you. I am coming to you as a fellow sufferer. I'm coming to you as a fellow sufferer of CPTSD. I have realized in my mid-50s now that this CPTSD, the symptoms and how I feel about myself, how I act, and the things that I avoid and the way that I behave, all of it has boiled down to the programming that happened when I was a child and started out a whole slew of other messes that has gone on through my life. Part of introducing myself is telling you why I'm making these videos. One is because I want you to know that you're not alone. I want you to know that if you're struggling with life, if things have not gone the way that you thought that they were going to go in your life, if things have been kind of a mess for you, if you're struggling with things like finances or relationship or like substance abuse issues, there's all kinds of things that are related to CPTSD. If you're struggling with those things, you're not alone. There are a whole bunch of us out there who are struggling with these things, and there are ways that we can get better. And I believe that with all of my heart. It's why I'm working through this book, and it's why I'm making these videos so I can share my journey with you as I go through the process of healing. I have been doing this work for quite a while. It just seems like I take a step forward and I learn. It's like I open Pandora's box. There's so much more that I didn't know and that I wish I knew. And so what I'm trying to do with these videos is I'm trying to help you to discover the things that I'm discovering, but maybe without having to go through the years and years of studying and floundering around that I have had to do along the way. And again, I'm not there. I still have ups and downs. I'm still a financial mess. The financial mess became even more exacerbated as I had a brain problem a couple of years ago. And since that time, it kind of put me out of work, and it put me, it's just been a mess. And it made how I was not already amazing at finances, it made it just way worse. It made it a nightmare. So finances are a mess. Relationship-wise, I was married. I finally got married. I say finally because that was something that I really wanted. It may not be for everybody, but for me, I really wanted to be married. I really wanted to have a family. And that finally happened to me at 37. And the reason that it happened is because I was in a crazy depression, and I was so sick and tired of being on my own and being lonely and just not doing well that I married, I hate to say it, but the first guy that paid attention to me. And that meant that I jumped into an abusive relationship. And that was a hard relationship. He was an amazing man in a lot of ways, but that came with some not so amazing things, physically and emotional abuse. So I have not, since then, I have not been interested at all in a relationship, which is also where I don't want to be. Like, I don't want to spend the rest of my life living single. So that's an area that I want to work on. My weight is another way that these symptoms manifest. I'm seriously overweight. I do have another channel that talks about this. It's called Absolutely Positively Me 1970. If you're interested in following my weight loss journey, I'll put a link in down below so that you can hop over there and you can follow me on that as well. I am a single mom. I have 3 teenagers. They're amazing. 2 of them, they're twins, and they are graduating from high school this year. And my youngest is learning how to drive because she is turning 16 this summer. Okay, so let's talk about big T traumas versus little t traumas. I really don't think that they should be separated in big and little because it seems to give less importance to the little t traumas, but that's what they call them. So let's just talk about what the differences are. Big T traumas are usually referring to something that happens like it's kind of a one-time big event. So we're talking about natural disasters. We're talking about like war. We're talking about a serious accident or physical assault, those kinds of things that are kind of isolated to a one kind of event. Big T traumas are highly distressing. They are life-threatening. On the other hand, little t traumas are not necessarily life-threatening, but they are still distressing and they can cause quite a bit of chaos in your life and your emotional well-being. These kinds of traumas tend to be more relational. So we're talking about things like being bullied, experiencing discrimination, being humiliated in front of your peers, finding out that your spouse cheated on you. Little t traumas can be just as overwhelming and debilitating as a big T trauma. Complex is when the PTSD, the trauma, is repeated, it's ongoing in situations like abuse or neglect or abandonment. Those kinds of things can create CPTSD. Now, the symptoms of both of them kind of overlap each other. And I'm going to stop right here for a second. And I want to give an explanation that CPTSD is not officially recognized in the DSM. The DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and it is what is used in North America to assign a diagnosis. Therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, those in the field use this manual to find the symptoms in order to diagnose their clients. It's not in there. CPTSD is not in there. It is not recognized yet in this DSM. However, in the ICD, which is the International Classification of Diseases, is published by the World Health Organization, which is used widely around the world, except for in North America. In the ICD, it is an official diagnosis. So unfortunately, here in America, it's not a thing. In fact, I had a counselor tell me that it was not a thing, and which I am completely opposed to. I started a channel for CPTSD, so of course I believe that it is a thing. And there are symptoms that are different from PTSD and CPTSD. Those symptoms I will be lining out specifically in my next video, so stay tuned for that. Subscribe to the channel if this is something that you're interested in and that you want to talk about and you want to learn more about. The other point that I want to make is that as we do this work together, as we're going through these things, I'm not a doctor. I don't have a license. I entered in a master's program for studying to be a mental health counselor, but that does not make me an expert. It does not make me a professional. I am not a professional. I am someone who is going through these things and learning these things. So any advice I give, anything that I share with you, please discuss with a professional or research for yourself. Also, I want to say that if you do seek out a professional, please be aware that it may be that your therapist does not recognize CPTSD. So I would encourage you to find one who does. I would also strongly encourage you to find a counselor who is trauma informed. As I have entered this field, as I have gone to different counselors, I have realized that sometimes the training for counselors and therapists can be very broad, and they don't necessarily have the special training needed that people who deal with trauma need. So you will want to find a counselor who is trained and who can work with you specifically for dealing with the trauma. Okay, so let's talk about some examples of the differences between CPTSD and PTSD. I just want to give you some examples in case you are still a little bit unsure if this applies to you. So for example, let's say that somebody is, like, they work at a convenience store, and these examples actually come from the book, that somebody works in a convenience store and they are held up. They are held, well, it is held up. And they are held up. Is that what you call it? At gunpoint. Anyway, somebody comes in to rob the store. If it causes a disruption in the person's life and their ability to function, they have nightmares or intrusive memories. They are having flashbacks of the episode. It's like replaying in their head over and over again. If they're constantly feeling dread or fear that their life is at risk, they're having panic attacks, they're having anxiety, and that is PTSD, okay? And that trauma needs to be worked through and healed so that the person can return to normal functioning. On the other hand, if a person is experiencing trauma as a normal part of their life, let's say, for example, and this also comes from the book, there is a man who is married, and from all of the outside appearances, everything is going really well. But at home, in the background, his wife has a drinking problem, and she is verbally and emotionally abusive, and occasionally she is physically abusive. This is a person who is experiencing trauma all the time. It is chronic. He is living in a situation that is causing the stress and the trauma all the time. That is the difference between CPTSD and PTSD. He can also have that feeling of dread that he lives with daily. He can also have like intrusive thoughts. He can also take that experience and identify with it so that it becomes something that he blames himself for or labels himself for, that he's a bad father for not protecting his children more, or he is a bad husband for having his wife go and turn to drinking instead of being able to take care of her. There is meaning that usually comes attached to who we are as people related to CPTSD and the chronic trauma. So that is kind of the dividing factor and where the symptoms split. Again, I'm going to talk about specific symptoms in the next video, so stick around for that. Why did I choose this book? It deals with both of the situations that I wanted to talk about. DBT, because it helps me develop the skills for calming my nervous system. I also chose it because of the workbook format. I wanted to do the work. I wanted to not skip over it like I do a lot of times when I'm trying to do self-help kinds of work. I wanted to dig in and make sure that I was getting the most out of what this author has to offer for me. I also like that it's really easy to understand. Sometimes when I have picked up books that talk about psychological conditions, they're hard to read, and they are not, they're like very heavy research based and in the explanation. And although I find that very interesting and I can dig into those kinds of things, that is not what I wanted in this format. This format is very easy to read. The explanations are really clear and straightforward, and she doesn't beat it to death. She explains it, gives examples, gives some activities to do, and I really, really like the format of the book. Also, she does talk about, with the DBT, CBT concepts, and that's cognitive behavioral therapy concepts, and that goes in together. DBT is a form of CBT. So I love that all of these things are combined, talking about how the body is involved with all of this and how our bodies store this trauma. She talks about that, and I just absolutely love it, and I can't wait to share that with you. Please subscribe. Please join me in this journey, and let's heal together. Have a great day.